So, let's go. Number 1. The 7 stars that are too warm. Start here, because this is the one that should not exist. In 2024, a team went looking through 5 million stars, not with a telescope pointed at the sky, one at a time. They took the giant catalogs and every scrap of light and heat we have already recorded from millions of suns, and they fed it all through a machine that was hunting for one very specific thing. A star that is glowing too warm in the wrong color. A star that is leaking heat it should not have. Here's why that matters to you. If you build something huge around a star, panels, mirrors, a shell to catch its light and power a civilization, you cannot win against physics. You can catch the light. You can use the energy. But whatever you use, you have to throw the leftover away, and it always comes out the same way. As heat. As a low, dull, infrared glow. You can hide your cities. You can hide your ships. You cannot hide your warmth. So they looked for warmth with no explanation. And out of 5 million stars, 7 of them answered. 7 small red suns, dim little embers, each one wrapped in a haze of heat that nobody can account for. The pattern of that heat lines up almost too neatly with the simplest models of a shell built around a star. Not a finished shell. A broken one. A half-built one. The kind of thing that would still be leaking light through the gaps. Now the honest part, because you deserve it, this might be nothing. Some scientists think the heat could be coming from a galaxy hiding far behind each star, bleeding its glow into the data and faking the signal. There's a whole checklist now, waiting on bigger telescopes to settle it once and for all. But sit with what these 7 things look like. They look like the cooling husk of something enormous. A structure whose builders caught a whole sun in a net and then stopped. And the light is still bleeding out through the holes into the dark, with nobody left to close them. That's the first discovery. Hold on to it, because it's about to stop being 7 stars. It's about to become 100,000 galaxies. Number 2, the 100,000 galaxies that stayed dark. Take that same idea and make it monstrous. One star leaking heat is interesting, but what happens when a civilization doesn't stop at one star? What happens when it eats its whole galaxy, hundreds of billions of suns, all of them harnessed, all of them working? That's the top of the ladder, the theoretical ceiling of what life can become. And it has a fingerprint you cannot erase, because a galaxy full of harvested stars would blaze in infrared like a coal fire behind frosted glass. So a team at Penn State went looking, not at one galaxy, at 100,000 of them. Think about that number for a second. Each galaxy in that survey is not a star. It's a city of hundreds of billions of stars. They pulled 100,000 of these islands out of the dark and asked one question of every single one. Is anyone in there so advanced that the whole place glows with their exhaust? The answer came back. Across all 100,000. No. Not one galaxy is lit up like that. A handful ran a little warmer than expected, but every one of those has a boring natural reason. Dust, newborn stars, the ordinary machinery of a galaxy just being a galaxy. Nobody is running the whole show. Anywhere. In 100,000 galaxies. And that leaves you with only 2 doors, and both of them are cold. Door 1, no civilization anywhere ever climbs that high. There's a wall and everybody hits it. Door 2, they can climb that high, and they do. And then they die, every single time, before the light of their empire can reach us. Either the ceiling is real, or the graveyard is. You scanned 100,000 galaxies, and the lights were off in all of them. Now let's stop looking at light, let's pick something up. Number 3, the metal spheres pulled from the Pacific. Everything so far has been light in a telescope. This one you could hold in your hand. On January 8th, 2014, something hit the sky over the Pacific near Papua New Guinea and burned. It was small, about the size of a person, but it was moving wrong. Too fast. Faster than anything born in our solar system has any business moving. When the numbers got checked, the trajectory pointed back out, past the planets, into interstellar space. This thing came from somewhere else. Even the US military signed off on that part. Most people would let a burned up rock at the bottom of the ocean stay lost. One scientist didn't. In 2023, a team went out to that exact patch of open sea, dropped a sled covered in magnets, and dragged the seafloor. They came back with 850 tiny spheres, metal beads smaller than grains of sand, cold and wet on the magnets. And when they analyzed them, a chunk of those beads didn't match the ordinary chemistry of our solar system. They were loaded with a strange mix of elements you don't usually find bundled together in a natural rock. Now, I have to be straight with you. This is a fight. A lot of scientists think those beads are just coal ash, or ordinary industrial junk that rained into the ocean. Some don't even buy that the fireball was interstellar in the first place. Nobody has closed the case. But here's what's real, no matter which side wins. A thing from another star system slammed into our planet, and we went down into the dark water and pulled pieces of it back up. Whatever those beads are, they are the closest you have ever physically been to material from beyond the solar system. And if even a few of them turn out to be manufactured, a shard of somebody else's technology, drifting for 1 million years before it fell into our ocean, then you're not looking at a graveyard through a telescope anymore. You're holding a piece of it. Keep that feeling because the next one came from the closest star we have. Number 4, the signal from the nearest star. Proxima Centauri is the closest star to the sun. Next door, in cosmic terms. If anybody was ever going to whisper and have us catch it, it would be from there. In 2019, a radio telescope in Australia was staring at Proxima, and it caught something. A single clean tone, sitting at 982 megahertz. And that mattered, because nature almost never makes a signal that clean. Stars roar across every frequency at once. Gas clouds hum in broad, messy bands. A single narrow tone, a pure note, is the kind of thing a machine makes. A transmitter. And it got worse, or better depending on how much you wanted it to be real. The note was drifting, sliding slowly in pitch exactly the way a signal would if it were coming from a transmitter sitting on a planet that was turning, moving toward you and then away. It looked like a broadcast from the surface of another world. For months, this was the best thing SETI had ever found. The single most convincing candidate in the history of listening for aliens. People sat on it. They didn't announce it. They just kept testing quietly, waiting for it to break. And eventually, it did. When they dug all the way down, the signal turned out to be us. Some piece of human equipment, some drifting hum of our own electronics folded up in a way that mimicked a transmitter from the stars almost perfectly. Almost. That's the word that stays with you. For months, the nearest star seemed to be talking, and it took an enormous effort to prove that it wasn't. The silence didn't hand itself over easily. It made us work to be disappointed. And it makes you wonder how many real whispers we've thrown away as noise. Number 5, the stars that simply vanished. Stars are supposed to be reliable. That's the whole point of them. They burn for billions of years. On the scale of a human life, on the scale of 100 human lives, a star does not just switch off. So here's a problem nobody asked for. There is a project that does nothing but compare old photographs of the sky to new ones. They pull out glass plates from the 1950s, actual photographs of the night sky, taken before anyone had launched a single satellite, and they lay them next to what we see today, and they look for what's missing. And things are missing. On one plate from April of 1950, there are 9 points of light. 9 little stars sitting in a patch of sky captured in the same instant. Go back to that exact patch today with far better instruments, and they are gone. All 9. There's another case from the summer of 1952, 3 points of light flaring together and then vanishing. This is before Sputnik. Before 1957, so you can't blame it on a satellite catching the sun. These are dots that were there, on film, and are not there now. And I'll tell you honestly, this is argued about hard. Plenty of scientists think it's flaws in the old photographs, specks, chemical defects, dust on the emulsion. That might be all it is. But the people who found them keep pointing at how these flashes seem to cluster in time, in ways a random smudge shouldn't. Whatever they are, the idea underneath is the one that gets you. Up until now, every discovery has been something appearing, a signal, a warmth, a beat of metal. This is the opposite. This is absence as evidence. This is the sky quietly losing points of light and nobody being able to say for certain where they went. Number 6. The pollution that outlives its makers. Everything we've looked at is a civilization saying something on purpose or by accident. This one is a civilization leaving a stain. You are right now poisoning your own air in a very specific, very detectable way. Burn enough fuel and you fill the sky with nitrogen dioxide, a nasty gas that hangs over cities. NASA ran the numbers and realized something unsettling in a good way. That gas has a fingerprint in light. And if you had a big enough telescope and a nearby planet, you could read that fingerprint from light years away. You could look at another world and know its skies were full of the exhaust of industry. And it gets sharper than that. There's a class of chemicals, and the ones that used to be in old spray cans and refrigerators, that nature does not make. Not in a volcano, not in an ocean, not anywhere. The only way they exist is if somebody manufactures them, and the newest telescopes could, in theory, catch those artificial gases in the air of a planet like the ones near a nearby star in a couple of days of looking. Now here's the part that turns this from a search for the living into a search for the dead. These chemicals linger. They don't vanish when the factories go quiet. They hang in an atmosphere long after the last hand that made them is gone. So picture it. A world that built itself up, burned itself dirty, and then died. Went silent, went extinct, whatever the ending was. That world could still be wearing the bruise. A haze of poison in the air with nobody left underneath it to breathe it. You wouldn't see cities, you wouldn't see bodies, you'd see a smudge in the color of the light. A chemical tombstone, still hanging there, spelling out that somebody was here and that whatever they did, it didn't save them. Number 7. The worlds that had an 11 billion year head start. Here's a thing you probably feel in your gut without ever being told, and it's wrong. You feel like Earth is old, ancient, the stately senior planet, and you feel like if anyone else were out there, we'd all be roughly the same age, all figuring it out together. Let me break that. There's a star called Kepler 444, and it has 5 small rocky planets. And that star, and those worlds, are 11.2 billion years old. Our sun is about 4.5 billion. So this system is 2.5 times older than everything you have ever known. It was already ancient when the cloud that became our sun hadn't even started to collapse. Those particular planets are too close to their star and too hot for life. That's not the point. The point is what they prove. They prove that small, rocky, Earth-type worlds have been forming for 11 billion years, almost since the beginning. The universe was building planets like ours when it was barely a fifth of its current age, so run the clock forward. If a world like that grew life, and that life grew smart, and that civilization rose, it had a head start on you of billions of years. Not centuries, not thousands of years. Billions. That's enough time for a species to rise, spread, and vanish, and then do it again, and again. Enough time for entire civilizations to have come and gone, been forgotten, turned to dust, and been replaced, all before your sun even switched on. You're not late to the party. You're so late the party ended, got cleaned up, and the building got demolished, and you're standing on the empty lot wondering if anyone was ever here. That's the head start you're up against, and the best places for that head start to play out are the ones we look at next. Number 8, the ancient star cities gone quiet. Step back from single stars for a second and look at something bigger, older, and stranger. Above and below the flat disk of our galaxy, floating around it like a swarm, there are these tight balls of stars, globular clusters. About 150 of them orbit the Milky Way. Each one is a knot of hundreds of thousands of suns packed into a space where, if you lived there, the night sky would be on fire. Thousands of stars bright enough to read by, no true darkness ever. And they are old, 12, 13 billion years old. Some of the most ancient, most stable neighborhoods in the entire galaxy. Some scientists made a simple, chilling argument about these places. If you wanted to find an old civilization, one that had survived a long time, one that maybe even spread from star to star, this is where you'd look. Because in a cluster like this, the stars are jammed together. Your nearest neighbor star isn't 25 trillion miles away like ours is. It's about 1 trillion. 20 times closer. Sending a message between stars in there would be less like shouting across the ocean and more like passing a note across a room. Perfect conditions, ancient stable suns, neighbors close enough to actually reach. Time, oceans of it, for something to grow and hold on. If life anywhere got a real chance to become old and wise and permanent, it was in one of these star cities. We've started pointing our instruments at them, listening in on clusters one by one for anything that sounds like a voice. And so far, they're quiet. The oldest, richest, most crowded real estate in the galaxy, the exact places you'd bet your money on, and they are silent as a cathedral after everyone's gone home. Beautiful, ancient, empty. Number 9, the equation that fills the galaxy with graves. Let's stop looking through telescopes for a minute and just do the math, because the math is where the graveyard actually lives. A team in England ran a careful calculation, trying to answer the oldest question there is. How many civilizations are out there right now talking at this exact moment? They made careful, reasonable assumptions about how long it takes life to appear and grow up. And they got a number. Around 36. 36 civilizations in the whole Milky Way broadcasting right now. 36 in a galaxy of hundreds of billions of stars. That already sounds lonely. But that's not the scary part. The scary part is hidden inside one assumption they had to make. To get that number, they had to guess how long a civilization stays alive and talking, and they had almost nothing to go on, because we only have one example. Us. We've had radio for about 100 years, so they plugged in 100 years. A civilization talks for roughly a century, and then the calculation assumes it stops, dies, or goes quiet. Now feel the weight of that. If civilizations only last a century or so, but the galaxy has been making stars and planets for over 13 billion years, then for every single one that is talking right now, thousands upon thousands have already come and gone, lit up, said their piece into the dark, and fell silent, long before we ever built an antenna to hear them. The living ones are a tiny handful of candles. The dead ones are the whole cemetery those candles are standing in. The graveyard isn't a mood. It isn't me being dramatic. It falls straight out of the numbers. Make a civilization's life short, and you don't get an empty galaxy. You get a full one, full of the dead. And there's one civilization those numbers describe better than any other. Guess which? Number 10. Earth itself is already going dark. For decades, Earth has been screaming. Not on purpose. Every television broadcast, every radio station, every blast of early signal has been leaking off the planet and out into space, an expanding bubble of human noise about 100 light years wide. If somebody nearby was listening, we were loud. We were obvious. We were a lighthouse. Here's the thing nobody tells you. That lighthouse is switching off. And we're the ones switching it. Back when scientists first measured Earth's noise, the big loud broadcasts ruled everything. Powerful signals blasting in every direction at once. But look at what you actually use now. Cable. Fiber optics buried in the ground. Tight little beams shot straight up to a specific satellite and back down. None of that leaks. All of it is quiet, contained, aimed. As we got more advanced, we didn't get louder. We got quieter. We are pulling our own signal back in, wrapping ourselves in silence, and we're doing it without even trying. And this is where the whole video turns over. This entire time, you've been thinking the silence out there means everyone died. But maybe it doesn't. Maybe a civilization doesn't go silent because it's dead. Maybe it goes silent because it grew up. Because it stopped shouting and switched to quiet, buried, efficient technology, exactly like we're doing right now, in your lifetime, without anyone deciding to. So which is it? Is the galaxy quiet because it's a graveyard? Or is it quiet because everyone in it eventually goes dark the way we're going dark? Still there, still alive, just invisible. The horror is that the evidence looks the same either way. A dead civilization and a matured, silent one leave you staring at the same empty sky, and you're standing on the planet demonstrating exactly how it happens. Number 11. The reason we'd never find the bodies. There's a hole in this whole story, and you might have already felt it. If the galaxy is really stuffed with dead civilizations, where are they? Where's the wreckage? Where are the ruins, the bones, the crumbling cities? Shouldn't we be tripping over graves? Two scientists asked a version of that question, but they made it personal. They asked, if an advanced civilization had risen on Earth itself, not aliens, us here, millions of years ago, and then vanished, would we even be able to tell? Their answer is the quietly devastating one. Probably not, because the planet eats its own evidence. Cities crumble in centuries. Metal rusts to nothing. Bones almost never turn to fossils. The odds are savagely against it. And the whole surface of the Earth is constantly being ground down, buried, melted, and recycled. Give it a few million years, and almost everything a civilization ever built is simply gone. Erased. Not hidden. Erased. What's left, if anything, is a whisper. A thin, strange chemical stain in a layer of rock. Odd traces in the sediment. A smear of something that shouldn't be there. That's it. That's all that would survive of a whole world of thinking, building creatures. A faint line in the stone that you'd have to be looking for, and even then might explain away. Now aim that at the galaxy. If a civilization leaves almost nothing behind even on its own planet, then a galaxy full of the dead wouldn't look like a galaxy full of ruins. It would look exactly like what we see. Empty, quiet, clean. The bodies aren't missing because nobody died. The bodies are missing because the universe is very, very good at burying its dead. Number 12. The closest candidate is us. So let's put all 12 pieces on the table and look at what we actually built. We looked for the waste heat of a civilization. We make waste heat. We looked for the chemical stain of industry in the air. Our air is stained right now. We looked for a loud radio signal leaking into space, and we found that a civilization eventually goes quiet. And we are already going quiet. We did the math on how long a civilization lasts, and the number we plugged in, the only example we had, was us. We asked what a dead civilization leaves behind, and the answer was almost nothing. Just a thin line in the rock. And one day, that thin line will be made of our plastic and our fallout and our bones. Do you see it yet? Every single tool in this video, every method we built to hunt for the dead out there, is a mirror. Point any of them at the sun, and you find a young, loud, dirty, fragile little civilization that has already started to go dark. If some other species out there is running their own version of this exact search, scanning their 100,000 galaxies, hunting for warmth, listening to their nearest star, we are not the watchers in their story. We are one of the 7 stars that are too warm. We are the smudge in the spectrum. We are a candidate. A little flicker they'll catch, wonder about for a moment, and file under maybe. We spent this whole time looking outward for the graveyard, and the graveyard has a plot already dug, already waiting, with a fresh headstone, and no name carved on it yet. You are sitting on a planet that is quietly, gently dimming, and the same silence that swallowed everyone else is already closing over your head, one buried cable at a time. The universe isn't empty. It's a cemetery, and you're not visiting. You live here.